Verse 13. The root being there, the fruition comes in the form of species, life, and experience of pleasure and pain. The roots, the causes, the samskaras, being there, they manifest and form the effects. The cause, dying down, becomes the effect. The effect, getting subtler, becomes the cause of the next effect. A tree bears a seed, which becomes the cause of another tree, and so on. All our works now are the effects of past samskaras. Again, these works becoming samskaras will be the causes of future actions, and thus we go on. So, this aphorism says that the cause being there, the fruit must come, in the form of species of beings. One will be a man, another an angel, another an animal, another a demon. Then there are different effects of karma in life. One man lives 50 years, another 100, another dies in 2 years and never attains maturity. All these differences in life are regulated by past karma. One man is born, as it were, for pleasure. If he buries himself in a forest, pleasure will follow him there. Another man, wherever he goes, is followed by pain. Everything becomes painful for him. It is the result of their own past. According to the philosophy of the yogis, all virtuous actions bring pleasure, and all vicious actions bring pain. Any man who does wicked deeds is sure to reap their fruit in the form of pain. Verse 14. They bear fruit as pleasure or pain, caused by virtue or vice. Verse 15. To the discriminating, all is painful on account of everything bringing pain, either as consequence, or as anticipation of loss of happiness, or as fresh craving arising from impressions of happiness, and also as counteraction of qualities. The yogis say that the man who has discriminating powers, the man of good sense, sees through all that are called pleasure and pain, and knows that they come to all, and that one follows and melts into the other. He sees that men follow a dream all their lives, and never succeed in fulfilling their desires. The great king, Yudhishthira, once said that the most wonderful thing in life is that every moment we see people dying around us, and yet we think we shall never die. Surrounded by fools on every side, we think we are the only exceptions, the only learned men. Surrounded by all sorts of experiences of fickleness, we think our love is the only lasting love. How can that be? Even love is selfish, and the yogi says that in the end we shall find that even the love of husbands and wives and children and friends slowly decays. Decadence seizes everything in this life. It is only when everything, even love, fails, that with a flash man finds out how vain, how dreamlike is this world. Then he catches a glimpse of vairagya, renunciation, catches a glimpse of the beyond. It is only by giving up this world that the other comes, never through holding on to this one. Never yet was there a great soul who had not to reject sense pleasures and enjoyments to acquire his greatness. The cause of misery is the clash between the different forces of nature, one dragging one way and another dragging another, rendering permanent happiness impossible. Verse 16. The misery which is not yet come is to be avoided. Some karma we have worked out already, some we are working out now in the present, and some are waiting to bear fruit in the future. The first kind is past and gone. The second we will have to work out, and it is only that which is waiting to bear fruit in the future that we can conquer and control, towards which end all our forces should be directed. This is what Patanjali means when he says that samskaras are to be controlled by resolving them into their causal state in verse 10. Verse 17. The cause of that which is to be avoided is the junction of the seer and the seen. Who is the seer? The self of man, the Purusha. What is the seen? The whole of nature, beginning with the mind down to gross matter. All pleasure and pain arise from the junction between this Purusha and the mind. The Purusha, you must remember, according to this philosophy, is pure. When joined to nature, it appears to feel pleasure or pain by reflection. Verse 18. The experienced is composed of elements and organs, is of the nature of illumination, action, and inertia, and is for the purpose of experience and release of the experiencer. The experienced, that is, nature, is composed of elements and organs, the elements, gross and fine, which compose the whole of nature, and the organs of the senses, mind, etc., and is of the nature of illumination, sattva, action, or rajas, and inertia, tamas. What is the purpose of the whole of nature? That the Purusha may gain experience. The Purusha has, as it were, forgotten its mighty, godly nature. There is a story that the king of the gods, Indra, once became a pig, wallowing in mire. He had a she-pig and a lot of baby pigs, and was very happy. Then some gods saw his plight, and came to him and told him, "You are the king of the gods. You have all the gods under your command. Why are you here?" But Indra said, "Never mind, I'm all right here. I do not care for heaven while I have this sow and these little pigs." The poor gods were at their wits' end. After a time, they decided to slay all the pigs one after another. When all were dead, Indra began to weep and mourn. Then the gods ripped his pig body open, and he came out of it, and began to laugh when he realized what a hideous dream he had had. He, the king of the gods, to have become a pig, and to think that that pig life was the only life. Not only so, but to have wanted the whole universe to come into the pig life. The Purusha, when it identifies itself with nature, forgets that it is pure and infinite. The Purusha does not love. It is love itself. It does not exist. It is existence itself. The soul does not know. It is knowledge itself. It is a mistake to say the soul loves, exists, or knows. Love, existence, and knowledge are not the qualities of the Purusha, but its essence. When they get reflected upon something, you may call them the qualities of that something. They are not the qualities but the essence of the Purusha, the great Atman, the infinite being, without birth or death, established in its own glory. It appears to have become so degenerate that if you approach to tell it you are not a pig, it begins to squeal and bite. Thus is it with us all in this Maya, this dream world, where it is all misery, weeping and crying, where a few golden balls are rolled and the world scrambles after them. You were never bound by laws. Nature never had a bond for you. That is what the yogi tells you. Have patience to learn it. And the yogi shows how, by junction with nature and identifying itself with the mind and the world, the Purusha thinks itself miserable. Then the yogi goes on to show you that the way out is through experience. You have to get all this experience, but finish it quickly. We have placed ourselves in this net and will have to get out. We have got ourselves caught in the trap, and we will have to work out our freedom. So get this experience of husbands and wives and friends and little loves. You will get through them safely if you never forget what you really are. Never forget this is only a momentary state, and that we have to pass through it. Experience is the one great teacher, experience of pleasure and pain. But know it is only experience. It leads step by step to that state where all things become small, and the Purusha so great that the whole universe seems as a drop in the ocean and falls off by its own nothingness. We have to go through different experiences, but let us never forget the ideal. Verse 19. The states of the qualities are the defined, the undefined, the indicated only, and the signless. The system of yoga is built entirely on the philosophy of the Samkhyas, as I told you before, and here again I shall remind you of the cosmology of the Samkhya philosophy. According to the Samkhyas, nature is both the material and the efficient cause of the universe. In nature, there are three sorts of materials: the sattva, the rajas, and the tamas. The tamas material is all that is dark, all that is ignorant and heavy. The rajas is activity. The sattva is calmness, light. Nature, before creation, is called by them avyakta, undefined or indiscrete. That is, in which there is no distinction of form or name, a state in which these three materials are held in perfect balance. Then the balance is disturbed, the three materials begin to mingle in various fashions, and the result is the universe. In every man, also, these three materials exist. When the sattva material prevails, knowledge comes. When rajas, activity, and when tamas, darkness, lassitude, idleness, and ignorance. According to the Samkhya theory, the highest manifestation of nature, consisting of the three materials, is what they call mahat, or intelligence, universal intelligence, of which each human intellect is a part. In the Samkhya psychology, there is a sharp distinction between manas, the mind function, and the function of the buddhi, or intellect. The mind function is simply to collect and carry impressions and present them to the buddhi, the individual mahat, which determines upon it. Out of mahat comes egoism, out of which again come the fine materials. The fine materials combine and become the gross materials outside, the external universe. The claim of the Samkhya philosophy is that beginning with the intellect, down to a block of stone, All is the product of one substance, different only as finer to grosser states of existence. The finer is the cause, and the grosser is the effect. According to the Samkhya philosophy, beyond the whole of nature is the Purusha, the pure soul, which is not material at all. Purusha is not at all similar to anything else, either buddhi, or mind, or the tanmatras, or the gross materials. It is not akin to any one of these. It is entirely separate, entirely different in its nature, and from this they argue that the Purusha must be immortal, because it is not the result of combination. That which is not the result of combination cannot die. The Purushas, or souls, are infinite in number. Now we shall understand the aphorism that the states of the qualities are defined, undefined, indicated only, and signless. By the defined are meant the gross elements which we can sense. By the undefined are meant the very fine materials, the tanmatras, which cannot be sensed by ordinary men. If you practice yoga, however, says Patanjali, after a while your perceptions will become so fine that you will actually see the tanmatras. For instance, you have heard how every man has a certain light about him. Every living being emits a certain light, and this, he says, can be seen by the yogi. We do not all see it, but we all throw out these tanmatras, just as a flower continuously sends out fine particles which enable us to smell it. Every day of our lives we throw out a mass of good or evil, and everywhere we go the atmosphere is full of these materials. That is how there came to the human mind, unconsciously, the idea of building temples and churches. Why should man build churches in which to worship God? Why not worship Him anywhere? Even if he did not know the reason, man found that the place where people worshipped God became full of good tanmatras. Every day people go there, and the more they go, the holier they get, and the holier that place becomes. If any man who has not much sattva in him goes there, the place will influence him and arouse his sattva quality. Here, therefore, is the significance of all temples and holy places, but you must remember that their holiness depends on holy people congregating there. The difficulty with man is that he forgets the original meaning and puts the cart before the horse. It was men who made these places holy, and then the effect became the cause, and made men holy. If the wicked only were to go there, it would become as bad as any other place. It is not the building, but the people that make a church, and that is what we always forget. That is why sages and holy persons, who have much of this sattva quality, can send it out and exert a tremendous influence day and night on their surroundings. A man may become so pure that his purity will become tangible. Whosoever comes in contact with him becomes pure. Next, the indicated only means the buddhi, the intellect. The indicated only is the first manifestation of nature. From it, all other manifestations proceed. The last is the signless. There seems to be a great difference between modern science and all religions at this point. Every religion has the idea that the universe comes out of intelligence. The theory of God, taking it in its psychological significance, apart from all ideas of personality, is that intelligence is first in the order of creation, and that out of intelligence comes what we call gross matter. Modern philosophers say that intelligence is the last to come. They say that unintelligent things slowly evolve into animals, and from animals into men. They claim that instead of everything coming out of intelligence, intelligence itself is the last to come. Both the religious and the scientific statements, though seeming directly opposed to each other, are true. Take an infinite series, A, B, A, B, A, B, etc. The question is, which is first, A or B? If you take the series AB, you will say that A is first. But if you take it as BA, you will say that B is first. It depends upon the way we look at it. Intelligence undergoes modification and becomes the gross matter. This again merges into intelligence, and thus the process goes on. The Samkhyas and other religionists put intelligence first, and the series becomes intelligence, then matter. The scientific man puts his finger on matter and says matter, then intelligence. They both indicate the same chain. Indian philosophy, however, goes beyond both intelligence and matter and finds a Purusha, or self, which is beyond intelligence, of which intelligence is but the borrowed light. Verse 20. The seer is intelligence only, and though pure, sees through the coloring of the intellect. This is, again, Samkhya philosophy. We have seen from the same philosophy that from the lowest form up to intelligence, all is nature. Beyond nature are Purushas, or souls, which have no qualities. Then how does the soul appear to be happy or unhappy? By reflection. If a red flower is put near a piece of pure crystal, the crystal appears to be red. Similarly, the appearances of happiness or unhappiness of the soul are but reflections. The soul itself has no coloring. The soul is separate from nature. Nature is one thing, soul another, eternally separate. The Samkhyas say that intelligence is a compound, that it grows and wanes, that it changes, just as the body changes, and that its nature is nearly the same as that of the body. As a fingernail is to the body, so is body to intelligence. The nail is a part of the body, but it can be pared off hundreds of times, and the body will still last. Similarly, intelligence lasts eons, while this body can be pared off, thrown off. Yet, intelligence cannot be immortal, because it changes, growing and waning. Anything that changes cannot be immortal. Certainly, intelligence is manufactured, and that very fact shows us that there must be something beyond that. It cannot be free. Everything connected with matter is in nature, and therefore bound forever. Who is free? The free must certainly be beyond cause and effect. If you say that the idea of freedom is a delusion, I shall say that the idea of bondage is also a delusion. Two facts come into our consciousness and stand or fall with each other. These are our notions of bondage and freedom. If we want to go through a wall and our head bumps against that wall, we see we are limited by that wall. At the same time, we find a willpower and think we can direct our will everywhere. At every step, these contradictory ideas come to us. We have to believe that we are free, yet at every moment we find we are not free. If one idea is a delusion, the other is also a delusion, and if one is true, the other also is true, because both stand upon the same basis, consciousness. The yogi says, both are true, that we are bound so far as intelligence goes, that we are free so far as the soul is concerned. It is the real nature of man, the soul, the Purusha, which is beyond all law of causation. Its freedom is percolating through layers of matter in various forms, intelligence, mind, etc. It is its light which is shining through all. Intelligence has no light of its own. Each organ has a particular center in the brain. It is not that all the organs have one center. Each organ is separate. Why do all perceptions harmonize? Where do they get their unity? If it were in the brain, it would be necessary for all the organs, the eyes, the nose, the ears, etc., to have one center only, while we know for certain that there are different centers for each. But a man can see and hear at the same time, so a unity must be there at the back of intelligence. Intelligence is connected with the brain, but behind intelligence even stands the Purusha, the unit, where all different sensations and perceptions join and become one. The soul itself is the center where all the different perceptions converge and become unified. That soul is free, and it is its freedom that tells you every moment that you are free. But you mistake and mingle that freedom every moment with intelligence and mind. You try to attribute that freedom to the intelligence, and immediately find that intelligence is not free. You attribute that freedom to the body, and immediately nature tells you that you are again mistaken. That is why there is this mingled sense of freedom and bondage at the same time. The yogi analyzes both what is free and what is bound, and his ignorance vanishes. He finds that the Purusha is free, is the essence of that knowledge which, coming through the buddhi, becomes intelligence, and as such is bound. Verse 21. The nature of the experienced is for him the Purusha. Nature has no light of its own. As long as the Purusha is present in it, it appears as light, but the light is borrowed, just as the moon's light is reflected. According to the yogis, all the manifestations of nature are caused by nature itself, but nature has no purpose in view, except to free the Purusha. Verse 22. Though destroyed for him whose goal has been gained, yet it is not destroyed, being common to others. The whole activity of nature is to make the soul know that it is entirely separate from nature. When the soul knows this, nature has no more attractions for it. But the whole of nature vanishes only for that man who has become free. There will always remain an infinite number of others for whom nature will go on working. Verse 23. Junction is the cause of the realization of the nature of both the powers, the experienced and its Lord. According to this aphorism, both the powers of soul and nature become manifest when they are in conjunction. Then all manifestations are thrown out. Ignorance is the cause of this conjunction. We see every day that the cause of our pain or pleasure is always our joining ourselves with the body. If I were perfectly certain that I am not this body, I should take no notice of heat and cold, or anything of the kind. This body is a combination. It is only a fiction to say that I have one body, you another, and the sun another. The whole universe is one ocean of matter, and you are the name of a little particle, and I of another, and the sun of another. We know that this matter is continuously changing. What is forming the sun one day, the next day may form the matter of our bodies. Verse 24. Ignorance is its cause. Through ignorance we have joined ourselves with a particular body, and thus opened ourselves to misery. This idea of body is a simple superstition. It is superstition that makes us happy or unhappy. It is superstition caused by ignorance that makes us feel heat and cold, pain and pleasure. It is our business to rise above this superstition, and the yogi shows us how we can do this. It has been demonstrated that under certain mental conditions a man may be burned, yet he will feel no pain. The difficulty is that this sudden upheaval of the mind comes like a whirlwind one minute and goes away the next. If, however, we gain it through yoga, we shall permanently attain to the separation of self from the body. Verse 25. There being absence of that ignorance, there is absence of junction, which is the thing to be avoided. That is the independence of the seer. According to yoga philosophy, it is through ignorance that the soul has been joined with nature. The aim is to get rid of nature's control over us. That is the goal of all religions. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. The yogi tries to reach this goal through psychic control. Until we can free ourselves from nature, we are slaves. As she dictates, so we must go. The yogi claims that he who controls mind controls matter also. The internal nature is much higher than the external, and much more difficult to grapple with, much more difficult to control. Therefore, he who has conquered the internal nature controls the whole universe. It becomes his servant. Rajayoga propounds the methods of gaining this control. Forces higher than we know in physical nature will have to be subdued. This body is just the external crust of the mind. They are not two different things. They are just as the oyster and its shell. They are but two aspects of one thing. The internal substance of the oyster takes up matter from outside and manufactures the shell. In the same way, the internal fine forces, which are called mind, take up gross matter from outside, and from that manufacture this external shell, the body. If, then, we have control of the internal, it is very easy to have control of the external. Then again, these forces are not different. It is not that some forces are physical and some mental. The physical forces are but the gross manifestations of the fine forces, just as the physical world is but the gross manifestation of the fine world.